Good morning, everybody. Court of Appeals judge and candidate for State Supreme Court, Maria Lazar, is our very special guest today, Tuesday, October 14th, 2025. For DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden, and you are watching DrydenWire Live. Today's show is being streamed on DrydenWire's Facebook page and on our YouTube channel. So however you may be watching, thank you for joining us. If you miss any of the conversation, no worries. You can watch the full recording on our website later today simply by visiting DrydenWire.com. With that, we welcome today's guest, District 2 Court of Appeals judge, who recently announced her campaign for the Wisconsin Supreme Court seat being vacated by conservative Justice Rebecca Bradley, Judge Maria Lazar. Maria, thanks for coming on. How are you this morning?
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my goodness. This is so exciting. I love it when judges come on.
Excellent.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome. And I can't wait to find out more. Anyone that watches these shows know I usually start looking into our guest, first-time guest, like 20 minutes before, 15, 20 minutes. And wow, I have a whole bunch of questions, including, of course, why you decided to get into the race for Wisconsin Supreme Court. Why would anybody want to do that job? I don't know. We'll get into all of that in a little bit. But first, let's get to know you a little bit. Tell us about you. Where were you born? Where were you raised?
All right. So I was born in Milwaukee. My parents then moved to Brookfield, which is where I've lived most of my life. I did live outside of Wisconsin for about 3 years when I went to Georgetown Law School, but Wisconsin kid, Waukesha County almost all my life.
So Brookfield, that's like Milwaukee area-ish?
It's a suburb right outside of Milwaukee, a little bit past Tosa.
Oh, sure. So you said you went to college at Georgetown, right?
Well, I went to college at Mount Mary, but then which is an all-girls school in Milwaukee, and then I went to Georgetown Law School in D.C.
Law schools. But you have to go to college first and then law school?
Oh, yes. So to be a lawyer, you need 4 years of college and then 3 years of law school. So 7.
So where was the college?
So the college is in Milwaukee. It's called Mount Mary. It's now university, but it was an all-girls college. My mom went there. I went there. I loved it. It was great.
I literally did not know that there were all-girl college. Are there all-male colleges?
I don't think so. Now, while I was there, the funny thing is that someone challenged it, and so men are allowed to take classes, but they can't get a degree from a university.
Why would you take a class if you can't get a degree?
I don't know. You'd have to ask them.
Good answer. Bizarre. So when you went to college, what did you go for? I mean, at this point, did you know I want to be a judge? At this point, what did you go for your degree in your undergrad?
So what I knew since 4th grade, when I decided I wasn't going to be an archaeologist because they work in hot areas, I knew I was going to be a lawyer. So I went to Mount Mary to get a degree in history and political science and writing. So those were my 2 minors. And I'd always intended to go to law school. So I thought that was a good base to get me moving forward to go to law school. I thought I wanted to do international law, which is why I picked Georgetown. Actually only applied 4 places, kind of scary. I got there and I absolutely, totally hated international law.
Why?
But I love the law school.
Why?
Why did I hate it? International law is very vague. It's like law of the sea. It is what every country says. There are no hard and fast rules. And that's not my personality. I like things that are straight and easily covered and organized.
Sure. So how soon into your house? How far into that did you realize you didn't like it, and then what did you transition to?
So in law school, your first year, you're doing basic contracts, property, constitutional law. The second year, you can take electives. I took all the international law classes and decided that wasn't where I wanted to go. So I started looking around and I realized I love litigation. I liked evidence. I think I got one of the high scores in evidence. And I just loved being in a court. I wanted to be in a courtroom. I wanted to litigate. And so that's where I transitioned and what I did with my degree when I came back to Wisconsin.
So the litigate one, that's the lawyers that are the ones that they like taking the and talking in front of the jury,
Yes.
right? And
So I was doing
that's a special skill. And there's a lot of lawyers. I mean, most lawyers, I think, usually don't have to end up doing that.
no.
Why did you like that part?
Well, so my personality is more I like I'm more drama related. I like performance. I did a lot of theater in high school and college and law school. We did theater, musical theater there as well. So I have no problem being in front of a court, being in front of a jury, and I actually like I'm a debater. I like that give and take, have to think on your feet, have to move forward and be really good and fast and know what you're doing. So you walk in prepared. I was always the defense side on debate. I was never the first side. So I was the side that had to figure things out, get my questions together, and then move forward. And
Sure.
that's what I love.
So you graduate and then what?
So I graduated. I came back to Wisconsin. I started working at a very small litigation boutique firm. And within, well, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years, I was doing all of their litigation and maybe a little longer. I was doing all their litigation. We did cases in state and federal courts. I was doing, I transitioned into bankruptcy on the corporate side, the creditor side, and was doing that in court. And I loved being in court. That was writing and being in court were my two favorite things.
What year about did you graduate? Not about. What
Uh,
year did you?
so I graduated, and well, actually, I should say you shouldn't ask me my age, but I will tell you I graduated from Georgetown in '89,
89.
so 1989.
And then how long were you at that firm?
That I was at that firm about 20 years,
Wow.
and when I became a partner working at that firm, and then one day someone handed me a flyer that mentioned they were looking for attorneys for the Department of Justice in bankruptcy. And first, I made sure it wasn't my partners who were telling me to go look. It was one of the secretaries, and I applied for the job. And it was funny because everyone applying was just out of law school, and I had 20 years of experience. And I walked in thinking, I get it, I don't. It really doesn't change my life that much, but I wanted to do something more than just be at this firm, just making money, just practicing law. I wanted to actually give back. So I really wanted to work for the Department of Justice. And so I went from private, which people don't do, and went to public. So it's sort of a backwards career path in some ways, but I loved it. And I was there about 5 years.
At the Department of Justice.
Yes.
What was
In
your?
fact, go ahead. Sorry.
I would say, what was your official title then?
So I was an assistant attorney general. I
Oh,
started out in a unit that was dealing with the public agencies and representing government entities. And right after I got to Madison, so I got there in November. I remember, I think like the week before Thanksgiving. And then that January is when the Capitol Act 10 happened. The Capitol was under siege, basically from all the protesters. So they took me because of my experience, and I stopped doing bankruptcy work and I started doing litigation for the state in all those cases, capital access, and everything else that was going on in the Capitol.
so when that happens and you get asked to do this, and obviously that was a very, I suppose, controversial. The Act 10 was controversial. Do you look at that and say, I'm all for this, like I believe in this, or is it no, this is just my job? They asked me to do this, I'm going to do this. It doesn't matter if I agree with it, if I don't agree with it, don't care at all. Or is it something that you were just passionate about?
So that's a great question. So first of all, I do have to clarify. When I worked on Act 10, so when you join the Department of Justice, you have to join a union, and they have one assistant attorney general who's not in the union, so that he or she can do any cases that impact the benefits of the people in the Department of Justice. So I wasn't that attorney. So when I worked on Act 10, all my case was, all it involved was this law properly passed? And did the Secretary of State at the time, Doug LaFollette, did he publish it correctly? So that was my case. And the answer by the state Supreme Court was yes. Then they started filing lawsuits about the merits. I was off that case entirely. But to your question about did I take cases I liked, or from private practice, you get a sense that you work on the cases that your partner is assigned to you. If you're you believe you can't do it ethically, you say something. I did have a few cases that I turned down in private practice. The cases I worked on for the Department of Justice, I was in the same position. I felt it was my obligation as an assistant attorney general representing the state to represent the state, to represent the individuals. And there was only one case that gave me pause, and that was when we had one of the gay marriage cases that went up at the same time as Obergeville went to the U.S. Supreme Court, and they were looking for someone to join that team. And I was in a sort of moral quandary because I didn't support that. And I really, though, wanted to argue in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. But so if you do it, you get this really cool quill pen.
Oh,
but
a pen. Wow.
Well, it's made out of a feather, and it's really cool, and it's in a box. But anyways, it turned out that I declined, and as I declined, they determined that we weren't going to be arguing. We were just going to be a companion case. So I really never, ever said no to any cases at the Department of Justice. There would have been one, but I really never had to say no.
Okay. Boy, that pen, though.
Yeah, I wanted that on the wall. I really did.
That must be a big thing. Like I'm laughing at it, but that seems like it's like a Heisman Trophy for college. Like it's a big thing if you can get this thing.
Yeah.
Right. I totally understand. So this was so we're up to what, 2014-ish?
Yeah. Well, about 2015. Yes. So at
and then what?
So as part of my so after I started doing these cases, they put me in what they call the Special Litigation and Appeals Unit. But I was still doing work for the Department of Children and Families. So I had a case. So all these cases that I worked on, big political issues, whatever. I get a case about foster children. And it was, I think, the most heartbreaking case I've ever had in my life. And I had a judge in Dane County. I thought I was going to win. I had a judge. They wanted to separate two foster children because they had they'd been so abused by their original parents that they had this disorder that didn't allow them to attach to anybody. We're not going to get into details, but I had a judge in Dane County tell me that the law didn't matter, and when it was on my side, this judge ruled against me, and I lost. And I went home, and I remember it was around the 4th of July, and I went home and I was devastated. My family was looking at me thinking, what's wrong? Because I was just sitting there thinking, I don't want to go anywhere because I don't want to see families with little kids because I feel horrible that this child was treated this way. And I just sat there and I said, you know what? I can do better. I can do this better. And at that moment, I decided I was going to run for circuit court judge in my county of Waukesha, and I did.
And that was 2015.
Yes. So I ran. I cleared the field, which means that no one challenged me. So I ran unopposed, and I think that was one of the first judicial seats in that county where there was no opponent. There were other seats that people competed for, but mine was unopposed. So I ran, and obviously unopposed, you win. So I won that election. And then I started on the circuit court, and I was there for 1 6-year term, and then I ran again. So I actually served 7 years total before I moved to the position I'm in now.
Okay, so Waukesha, so you're there for 7 years. So you were 1 year into your second term.
Yes.
And you decided.
Well,
go ahead.
So when you're a circuit court judge, on the rotations, I was in civil, I was criminal, I was presiding in criminal, I did drug treatment court, then I switched to juvenile and mental commitments. So I'd gone through all the branches except divisions, not branches, all the divisions on except family. And 1 year after I won my second election, the Court of Appeals position in District 2, which is 12 counties, opened up, and I immediately, literally that day, I started texting every single person I knew in law, and I said, I'm running for this. Will you endorse me? And I, I got everyone to say they weren't going to run against me, and I got everyone to endorse me. And I had an opponent who was appointed by Governor Evers, and I won that race.
Why did you decide when you saw the District 2 position? What was it that you just said that I knew it right then, done, I'm running. I mean,
All
there
right.
wasn't a long, like, boy, I don't know, and talk to your husband, and boy, what do I do? You
Well,
just knew.
actually,
What was it?
if he's watching, I did talk to him,
Oh,
so I'm not
yeah,
going to
he's
say
watching.
that.
You got to cover your bases. That's smart.
Cover my bases there.
Yeah.
So the reason why is, so when you're on, let's say, the criminal bench, so you have about 500 cases that are in front of you, and you're working on all these cases, and so you're making a. I felt as a judge that I was serving my county, Waukesha County. I was making a difference. I was doing things for the people in that county, case by case. But the Court of Appeals, and while I was working on the circuit court, I love writing. So I was actually one of not many judges who would write out really long legal orders and judgments and decisions. And so when this position came up, I looked at it and I said, I can do so much better for the state of Wisconsin and my county and the other 11 counties on the Court of Appeals, where I can actually make a difference on the one appeal that I'll work on would actually make a difference to the entire state of Wisconsin. So it wasn't a one-on-one case. Now I could do something that changed the law, well, not changed the law, that interpreted the law, that set out rules that helped the state of Wisconsin, not just my individual cases in my county. So that's why I knew. And I, quite frankly, I love to read. I love to write. If you ask my husband, he'll say I'm crazy because on my days off, I'll be reading books and novels and doing all sorts of stuff when that's all I do at work now. So I knew this was the job for me.
So dumb it down for, I'll say others, but honestly, it's just me. The appeals court. So I think there's 4 districts, 4 in each. So there's
Yes.
16, right, in 6-year terms. But so when you're a circuit court judge, there's a case, and then the judge makes a decision, right?
Yes. Okay.
And then, but an appeals court that goes. So then a defense attorney, for example, could file an appeal. And what would they typically file an appeal for? And then that just goes to that district. And right now you're District 2, which is down in southeastern Wisconsin. And then does it just go to one judge, or does it go to like all 4 of you? How does this process work?
All right. So this will be a quick primer. So there are about 256 circuit judges in Wisconsin. So each county has at least one. Milwaukee has about 49 or so. Waukesha had 12. So those are the judges that people see first. You go to court, it's a criminal case, you're a witness, you're a victim, or the defendant. You have a civil case. So you go to the circuit court judge. That judge, acting alone, that one judge makes a decision and issues an order, or you win your case, or you get sentenced to prison, or whatever it is. So right after that, you have the right as a party in those cases to appeal anything. You can appeal in the middle of your case if you think the judge has made a horrible decision, and you ask. That's when you ask for relief. You ask for an appeal. But if the case is over, you appeal to the Court of Appeals, and the Court of Appeals, Milwaukee is District 1 because it's got so many judges. And then District 2, we go down Calumet, Fond du Lac, all the way to Kenosha and Racine. And then District 3 is the entire top
Yeah.
of the state.
That's us up here. Yep.
Yeah, that's all you. And then District 4 is about Dodge and Jefferson, all the way over, including Dane, all the way to the Mississippi. So when you appeal to one of these districts, there are 4 judges, except you guys up north. You only have 3, and Dane County has 5.
I tell you.
Yeah, which they, well, Dane County, no, District 4. So I know the legislature talked about switching that around, and no comment. But anyway, so you go to your district. You have 4 judges or whatever it is, but only 3 sit on a case, because you can't have 4, because what if it's 2 to 2? So 3 sit on a case, they read the briefs, they make a decision, affirm or reverse, and then they issue a written order in every case. And we're talking a lot of cases. We're talking over 2,000 a year by the Court of Appeals. So once you get that opinion, then you have to ask for permission to go to the state Supreme Court, because you have an automatic right of appeal to the Court of Appeals. We correct errors. We find out if a trial court made a mistake. And I'm not blaming trial court judges. They move fast. They have everything going on all at once, and they have to make their decision. Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court, we can sit there for months and make our decision. So let's say you get a decision by an opinion by the Court of Appeals. You ask for permission to the state Supreme Court, and they get about 500 petitions a year. And last year, I think they took 14 or maybe 15. So when that happens, then the opinion by the Court of Appeals is the law. It is the case law for the state of Wisconsin. So on the Court of Appeals, we're making decisions and we're issuing opinions, if they're published, which impact everyone in the state of Wisconsin. And we do a lot of that. And the state Supreme Court is picky, and it chooses those opinions where they think they can address an open question. They can answer something that is in dispute, or if it's a new law that the legislature just passed and nobody really knows which way to interpret it, and the Court of Appeals does something. Sometimes they'll take it to affirm that, or sometimes they'll take it to reverse that. So that's how you move as you move along in the system.
And how long have you been doing that?
So I've been there. This is the middle of, I just finished 3 years. So I'm on the 4th year here.
On the 4th year.
So I have 2 more years.
And then you decided, now what's next in Supreme Court?
Right.
So we'll get to that. We'll get to that in 15 seconds after a word from Spooner Health.
Compassion is at the center of everything we do. It's rooted in who we are and why we're here. It unites us as providers, neighbors, and as a community. Learn more at spoonerhealth.com.
All right, we're chatting with District 2 Court of Appeals Judge and candidate for Wisconsin Supreme Court, Maria Lazar. So you decided, was this another one of those I knew right away, done, when Rebecca Bradley announced, I think that was in, April or August? It was a few months ago.
No, she announced about the beginning of September, right around Labor Day.
Of last year?
Of this year.
Wait, what are we in? Wait, just that recently?
Yes.
I thought it was a while ago. Regardless, she announced and you were like, you know what, that's it. I'm doing this. I mean, what led to your decision to do that?
Well, this one took a little more time in just
2 days.
Yes, it was 2 days. No, this took a little more time because, jump back a little bit. So in my Court of Appeals race, it got a little bit contested and a little bit nasty. Uh-oh. And I'm okay with that. I was able to handle that, but my family, and particularly my mom and other people, were very upset. So it's hard to see people you love feel hurt. And I give kudos to anybody who runs for any position now, because the rhetoric is unbelievably awful. And the things that they say about people, I just don't understand how we can have people running for a race and they are scorched earth, vicious, horrible, hateful rhetoric, and they throw that at you. And after you win or lose, after you win, you're supposed to just brush that aside and then work with people who've called you every name in the book. So my Court of Appeals race got a little bit like that. Not on my side. I mean, in fact, I was very above board and honest and dealt with integrity with everything. But so when this position opened up, I actually had a commitment with my family, and I had to leave the state for about 2 weeks. So I took that time to think about this. My husband and I talked about a run. I talked about it with my kids. I anticipated that it would be in a year or so. I thought Rebecca Bradley would run, and I love her, and I was hoping she would. And when she announced she wasn't going to, I talked to all my family. My mom's no longer here, but I talked to her about it. And I looked at it and I said, we need someone to stand up, and we need someone to say enough is enough. And we need someone to say we have to start putting judges on the state Supreme Court, and we have to really restore impartiality and integrity. And if we continue down the path that we are going, where it is a political election for a non-political position, Wisconsin's in jeopardy. So I took that time between you and me and no one else, because no one's listening, right? No one knows. I knew instantly that I was going to run, but I took that time to talk to my family, to get them on board, and they are all 100% behind me. I think some of them are going to turn off their social media. I don't do any social media. They're going to turn that off and not look at anything. I found it amusing that, so I had 2 weeks where I was doing something else, and then I got everything in order. And so I announced on October 1. But I found it amusing that right away, before I announced, the Democratic Party was out there blasting things about me and all these awful, horrible, fun things that they were saying, which quite frankly is somewhat amusing, because if you believe everything that you hear, everyone running for any office is evil, awful, does horrible things.
The worst. Yeah.
Eats puppies for and children for breakfast. So
yeah,
I recognize that that's what this race is going to be on their side. And I made a determination with my team that on my side, we were going to take the road of honesty, integrity, restoring this court, getting it back to where it's supposed to be, putting a judge on the bench. My opponent, it was a politician, and we don't need that anymore. We don't need it at all. So my decision was easy. I look at my watch every day. It says it's the 14th. I've been in this 14 days. It's fantastic. I am so excited to be doing this. This could not be better. I can't wait till April 7th, which by the way is the election day, April 7th. And on April 7th, I can't wait to prevailing and moving forward and just really helping turn the tide in the state of Wisconsin. And I'm hoping that my election and my success at this election makes every future judicial race go back to what they're supposed to do. Maybe that's too optimistic.
No, I think we should have optimism there. I'm trying to figure out how to phrase a question because I'm not sure to ask. Like I was golfing recently with some family members, and we're all playing best ball, and I don't like golf. But so we're all four of us, we're on the same team, and someone hits a shot, and I'm like, ooh, that was a really nice shot. What club did you use? Yeah, that got shot down right away. I guess it's like an unwritten rule. Like you can't ask somebody what club they use when they hit them. Like, I don't know. That's a stupid rule. So I'm not sure how to ask. 'Cause I don't know if you're allowed to ask it or what you can actually say. But I went to your website this morning, and in your press release, even in your announcement, you said, "I am an independent, impartial judge who strives to follow the law and Constitution in every decision I make from the bench." But as I mentioned at the very beginning, about 15, 20 minutes before you came on, I just Googled your name and look, and everything I see says conservative judge, conservative judge, conservative judge. So it's a roundabout way of me asking, are you a conservative judge, or how does that work? Or is it like I can't be a conservative judge?
So personally, I am conservative. My judicial philosophy, which I don't really want to bore people who are listening, so their eyes are starting to roll now. But my judicial philosophy is on the conservative side, in that I actually believe that we should look at the law as it's written, and we should interpret it. We should not read into it my personal views, and we shouldn't read into it how I want things to be. I think judges that I respect and people on the U.S. Supreme Court have said, you're not really a real true judge until you've issued a decision that you personally do not like. So there are things that you have to, if I were in charge of the world and I made all the laws and I were in the legislature, that'd be a different story. But I'm in the judicial branch. So am I conservative? Yes, that's my personal view. Is my opponent on the liberal side? Well, actually, to be perfectly honest, I think she's off the spectrum and beyond liberal. I think she's out of the mainstream of Wisconsin, and I can explain that in a minute. But my personal views are, when I put on that black robe, my personal views are supposed to be kept tight in with me. And I'm supposed to look at the facts, and I'm supposed to look at the law, and I'm supposed to interpret that. And that side, when you do that, that's a conservative view. So yes, do I find it amusing that when I threw my name in, every media outlet said conservative judge Maria Lazar. And when my opponent threw her name in, it was Judge Chris Taylor does this. And it should have been, well, maybe liberal judge Chris Taylor. Or it labels don't mean anything when you're on the bench. What you should be asking is the more important question, which is what they don't ask in judicial races. Who's more qualified? Who has more integrity? Who interprets the law in a way that is proper? Who looks at cases as they come in? Who maybe makes decisions that you will not like, but you at least will walk out of my courtroom and you will say, I had a fair opportunity to win this case and I lost because the law is against me or the facts are against me. And when you walk out and you feel that way, you should feel not happy if you've lost, but you should at least feel like you were in front of someone who's making the decision who actually cares about the law. So if that makes me conservative, then yes, I am.
You had just said that they should be asking the questions regarding who has best qualified and et cetera, but you said integrity as well. How does somebody know? Like, well, how do you gauge that? How do you know, like, well, this person has more integrity than this one? How's the voter supposed to figure that out?
All right, good question. So you can look at the opinions that I've written, and you can look at how I've written them. You can look at cases and decisions that I've made where it's not necessarily what you would want. So for example, the county in Waukesha County violated a search warrant, and they did something excessively broad, and they picked up a phone of someone who should never have had their phone picked up, and they found child pornography on it. Not good, horrible, bad, awful. I could go into a whole story, I won't. But they violated this individual's constitutional rights. So I held that the fruits of that search warrant were invalid, and I suppressed them. Is that what you want to do? No, but it shows that I have the integrity not to look at a case and say, oh, this is how I'm going to rule before I've heard anything at all, before I've heard a fact, because the facts make the difference. So if you have a judge who's going to come up to you and tell you, hey, when this case gets in front of me, here's how I'm going to rule. I don't think they have much integrity. So you can look at that as well. The question, and everyone in the state says, well, how are you going to rule on this? How are you going to rule on that? And you really can't answer that if you're a judge. And first of all, the ethics rules forbid it.
I would say you shouldn't. I don't know if you can't. I don't know what the law is. If you say you can't, you can't. But at the very least, you probably shouldn't. But yet, a lot of people do, though. And people want to know the answers to that stuff.
But you shouldn't, and you really can't, because when someone says, I'm going to ask you about this law, and you're going to say, oh, well, that law is valid or invalid, you haven't read a brief. You haven't heard argument. You don't know any facts. Now, I know people want to know, oh, how are you going to rule on this? Or what are you going to do? And there's a really easy answer to that. You go to my website, which, by the way, plug is judgemarialazar.com. But you go to my website and you look at opinions that I've written and you see, hey, this is a judge who lays out what the facts are, spells out the law, and then tells you why each word in it make a difference. And you can look at that and say, I have faith that that judge is going to be a great justice because she's going to stand by what the law says. She's going to do everything according to the Constitution. And quite frankly, in some of my opinions, I'll say things like, it doesn't seem, in a footnote, it doesn't seem like the legislature really recognized the consequences of what they enacted. So perhaps they want to look at this and sort of tee it up for the legislature to look at. But that's not my place to say, hey, I think the legislature really meant this, because that's not what I do. And if you have a judge who does that, and if you have a judge who doesn't really stand up for the rights of the citizens of Wisconsin, then you have a problem. That's where you find the integrity.
Looking back with the last two races, wow, there's a lot to unpack there. I also find it, on a side note, a little interesting that we don't really hear a lot of this race right now. We hear more about, obviously, with Tom Tiffany for governor, those races are going to be after, because you could have a primary in February, or the election is in April, which is more likely. And the other ones, the primaries aren't going to be until August, and yet we're talking more about those than about this. So I don't think we're going to be breaking any records financially this time around. But when you look back at it, that race in 2023, Protasewicz and Dan Kelly, I think we can all kind of see it now. It was kind of like a de facto referendum on abortion, because like the year before that was Dobbs got overturned Supreme Court, so then it went back to the state. So that's kind of where it was. I think Dan Kelly lost, or Protasewicz won by, I think it was like 11 points. So that was like the real big component to that race. And then you fast forward to actually just earlier this year, right? Yeah, with Brad Schimmel and Susan Crawford. And you can make an argument that was kind of a de facto referendum on Elon Musk. I mean, it was like 3 weeks before I even realized that it wasn't Susan Crawford versus Elon Musk. I'm like, oh, Brad Schimmel's actually in the race. So, and I said that jokingly, but that was a huge thing, right? I mean, Elon Musk got everybody all filed up. When you look back at those last two races, because I'm sure you have when you're looking at your campaign now, are you concerned there's going to be outside factors beyond your control that people aren't going to see you for who you are? And what did you learn from all of this when you look back at it?
Very true. So the interesting thing about the past few races, there's several differences, some big differences. I could joke and tell you the first one is, well, this time I'm a woman running against a woman instead of a man against a woman.
There's a difference.
And I think the state of Wisconsin sort of telegraphed that, which is interesting. But in reality, those races had to do with flipping the court too. So this race, whatever happens, there's still going to be a liberal majority on the state Supreme Court. So I don't see the amount of money coming into the state. I also know that there will be probably, on my opponent's side, outside money coming in to help her, because that's sort of what happens now. And I'm not really concerned about that. I think that this race has a lot of differences. And the important key difference is, one, I'm in it. But two, there's going to be a different approach on how I deal with this race. And that different approach is that I'm going to, as I've told you and I've said, is I'm going to try to explain that this is a race between a judge and a politician. And we do not want politicians in robes in Madison making decisions for the state of Wisconsin. That's what the legislature does. And we're all supposed to stay in our own lanes. This is also a race where I've looked back, and the people I'm working with have looked back, and we've said, we're not reaching out to everyone in the state. We're sort of ceding ground. We're not telling everyone, we're not going everywhere. We're just going to our same little safe echo chambers where everybody loves you and everyone's going to vote for you. And I'm not doing that. I'm not going to do that at all. I'm going to go to those where people will vote for me, obviously. But I also want to go talk to the communities that I think have been neglected and disrespected. The communities in Milwaukee, the communities in Madison and Dane County, Eau Claire, the colleges, the college kids, they're great. I've talked to them since I've been on the Court of Appeals, and even before. I constantly make an effort to go to high schools, to go to colleges, to talk to people about the boring aspects about judges and law and the judicial system. But so I have a reach there, and I want to talk more to the college kids. I also want to talk to people up north where you guys are. I want to talk to the Native American tribes. I want to talk to everyone in the state of Wisconsin, and I want to tell them that this is so important. We are watching the judicial system in Wisconsin circling down into chaos, and it cannot continue. And while, yes, I know I don't flip the court when I win, I also know that having someone there to stand up and be a voice of dissent, or maybe even convince someone on the other side that a little bit they want to pull over and join me, that's so important. On my desk in my chamber, I have a book my kids and husband bought me they found it in a used bookstore because it's out of print, and it's called Scalia's Dissents. And it's literally all of Scalia's, justice on the Supreme Court, no longer with us, his dissents. And the reason I love that book, and I really love that book, is because he wrote them when he was in the minority. And when he became in the majority, they now are the law of the entire country. So it inspires me to realize, even standing there as one person against a wind of a maelstrom coming at you, that's a good place to be. And that's a good position to have. So I think this race, when I explain that, when I go everywhere and talk to everyone, I think we're going to have a completely different outcome.
How do you think this will look in 5 years, 10 years, if we don't stop politicizing these races?
Oh, well, if we don't stop politicizing these races, well, we might as well just put a for sale sign on the state Supreme Court. And we might as well just say, if you have more money, why don't you buy the next justice? And that's ridiculous. When I was a young lawyer, I used to think people on the state Supreme Court were unbelievably cool. So yeah, boring person thinking that. But I used to think they were so cool. They were so amazing. They were like these huge scholars of the law. They were just immensely impressive. And it's sort of that, don't find out, if you get too close, you'll find out your statues have clay feet. Well, they all have clay feet now. And it's not just because I know them now and I know who they are, but it's that I look at them and I say, how can you be on a state Supreme Court? And how can you rule the way you want the law to be? And how do you go to bed at night and say, well, I did my job. I stood up for my political party or this person or these people who bought me this seat. And you don't say, my goal should be that I go to bed and say, I followed the law. I stood up for the Constitution. I have the best job in the world. And they don't. So if we don't change what we're doing, we are going to turn into a state that has 7 super legislators on the state Supreme Court. They will become more powerful than the legislature. They will become more powerful than the government. Not going to quote old things at you, but there is a quote in the Federalist Papers that says that we have nothing to fear about the judiciary unless it joins up with the legislature and starts making the laws, because then you have chaos. And you have 7 people. I don't care if they're good people, if they have good hearts. You have 7 people telling everyone in the state of Wisconsin that they know better. And that's not what this court should be. And so my goal is turn it around now. We've got an election the following year, we have several elections. They go in cycles. And we have an opportunity to put people on this court who may have diverse viewpoints. I hope. I like diverse viewpoints. I like having a discussion. I like having to argue a case out. I don't want 6 justices or 2 Court of Appeals judges who agree with everything I say. I mean, it's nice. I'm probably always right. But
most judges I know think that. Yes.
Yeah, my family would agree with that. Yes. But I don't want them to all agree with me, because when the way we work, when we get together as 3 on the Court of Appeals, one of us will say something and someone else will say, yes, but you're missing this point. Yes, but there's something out there. And I love when the judges tell me that, because I look at my opinions and then I make it better.
Hold on a second. I want to jump in right there then. Do you have an example of a time where you basically, I wouldn't say necessarily got turned around, but wow, like I was pretty sure this, and then all of a sudden another one of my peers said this, and it's like, my goodness. Thankfully, by your face, I think you do have one then.
Yes, I do, but unfortunately, I really can't tell you, because we're not supposed to say how we agree on things.
Okay.
But I can tell you that if you look at most of my opinions, the published opinions, it's a collaboration. It's not just Maria Lazar's view. It's a collaboration, and I work with my clerk. I work with the other judges, and they will come up with something, and they will make me either defend my position, and then I will stay with it, or they will make me see, nope, you know what, I need to tweak some words there. I need to fix this. And I think that's what makes it a better opinion. And that's what the state Supreme Court used to be. It used to be people who would get up there and do you really think that all 7 of them always agreed on everything? Even if it was unanimous, I would think that they have positions where they'd say, oh, you really can't say that. And if you say that, I'm not going to agree with your opinion. So you need to fix it or tweak it, or I'm going to concur, which just means dumbing it down, which means that you just agree with the end result, but you don't agree with how you got there. So
when it comes to the campaign, though, and I think you and I both agree, and it seems as though this isn't going to be $120 however many $1 million campaign like we've kind of seen in the past. But a lot of that stuff is so how you need to raise money in order to get your message out. That's the whole point of all of this.
Yes.
What do you do when an Elon Musk or an outside person comes in and that they don't talk to you, of course? It's like, we're just going to start doing this. And it's like, no, I don't want you to. But then again, hey, it's nice to have that money so we can get the message out. How are you approaching campaign dollars?
So that's an interesting question. And judges have unique ethical rules. I can't fundraise. I can't ask for money ever.
Really?
And no
like any judge, even circuit court judges can't?
No.
I didn't know
You're
that.
not allowed to. You cannot do that. We do fundraise, obviously, but other people do that. When you talk about outside money, first of all, this doesn't flip the court. We have a governor's race coming up that's going to have a lot more money coming into Wisconsin. So I don't see the huge numbers. But let's say you have an outside group that wants to come in and they want to run ads against your opponent or in support of you.
Sure.
It's the First Amendment. They're allowed to do
that. Yeah.
And I'm not out there asking people at all to come in and spend money because I can't fundraise. But the problem is that you have to be more creative. You have to look at this and say, I have a message. I need to get it out to the public. How am I going to do that? Yes, there'll be money that's raised. My team will deal with that. I don't deal with that. But the bigger question is, how do you get your message out? And I think in all of our campaigns coming up to now, we've been dealing with the old-fashioned way of doing that. And I think right now, judges and politicians, we're not politicians, but I think people running for elected office are looking at different ways to reach more people. And we're going more social media, we're going more interactive, we're doing more things like that. So I'm not concerned. I think I have the message. I think I am the candidate with the better meritorious candidate. I think I have the qualifications to be a great justice. And I think that I'm going to reach out now. Other groups coming in. I'm never going to campaign with the individuals that are. It's not going to turn into sort of the chaos that we had last time, which was the candidate on the left running against Elon Musk. That just isn't going to happen. I don't see that this race is high enough profile, and that's not my personality anyway.
Oh, and by the way, I love that. It shouldn't be. I remember we had Dan Kelly on when he ran. He was on a couple of times. It was a few years ago. And the knock on him was he was boring. And here's the thing. I freaking love that. Like, I want our Supreme Court justices to be boring. I really do. Like, I love the law. I love reading. It's not sexy. It isn't. It's just the law. And that's what I want. Actually, I think most people actually, well, I can't say most people actually do. I've completely lost touch with the world and society. Because what I think most people want clearly is not what most people want. But I kind of like the boring.
Most people, and when I campaigned for the Court of Appeals, I tell people it wasn't the sexy court because it was the Court of Appeals, not the state Supreme Court. But the thing is, judges on the circuit court, we interact with people. You're in front of us all the time. There's a little more personality shown. On the Court of Appeals, you don't see as much. Now, the Supreme Court, they'll have oral arguments. Yes. But the majority of what a judge on the Court of Appeals does and a justice does, if you were a normal, average individual, you would think that we were completely not law nerds. And we are. We get stacks of paper. I'm trying to see if I can get my fingers in. It's like this big of briefs. I have to read that much twice a month. And that's double-sided. And that doesn't include all the appendixes with all the details. And we like it. And what do? I write and I read, and that's all I do. We have some oral argument, but I write and I read. So you need someone who's going to be on this court who isn't going to pawn that off on a law clerk, who isn't going to not do their work, who isn't going to read every single word that someone's written, pro se, attorney, high-powered attorney. It doesn't matter. I read it all. I look at it all. I look up the cases, and I love it. And that takes a different personality. So we're not the people that have the adventurous jobs. We're not climbing mountains. We're not doing things like that. We're not inventing things. But we're so important to the society.
Wildly important. We need more law nerds. We just do.
We do. And in fact, when I was on the circuit court, I was actually, I think, the queen of the law nerds, because I would follow the state Supreme Court and the U.S. Supreme Court, and whenever they'd issue an opinion, I would take it, link it, and send it to all the judges in that area, and they all were just kind of like, "Oh, stop it! You're driving us crazy." But I found it interesting, so that's why I think I've fallen into where I should be, and not fallen into. I've worked hard to be where I am. But I think it's also why I am a better candidate for this position.
Do you get to keep this gig if you don't win this?
So yes, because if my term were up, then I would have to give up my seat, because you can't be on two ballot entries on the same election. But I am not up. But it doesn't really matter, because I full well intend to win the election on April 7th. And you can vote early. I full well intend to win that election, and then someone else will be running for my seat on the Court of Appeals.
And you'll never be able to come on a show again when you win, right?
Why not?
I don't know. Judges, you got weird rules.
Well, actually, that's a really good question as well. So I've talked to our judicial ethics people, and one of the things that judges and justices are supposed to do, and a big goal they're supposed to have, is educating the public. And that's why, as a Court of Appeals judge, I go to places, and even when I'm not campaigning, I go to places and I talk about, law nerd, talk about the law, talk about why it's important to you, talk about why it matters to the public. But as a justice, I think you should be around the state just as much. And you should be telling people what the law is, what the Supreme Court does. You should be going to high schools.
I like
You
that.
should be talking to kids and telling them, hey, you're the kid who likes history, who likes the boring side of things. Maybe I liked it. You like these things, but here's what you can do. You can go and you can study hard. You can work hard. You can become a lawyer. And in 5 years, you can run for the bench. You have to be a lawyer for 5 years. But why not? Why not get more people in the state interested in the law? Why not move them forward? Why not talk to particularly young girls and tell them we need women on the bench?
Well, do we though? Because I feel like we have enough. I'm just kidding.
No, but that's a good point. But the state Supreme Court and the Court of Appeals have more women, but 256 circuit court judges, and they are not a majority women.
I know why. What is with Wisconsin, and which is perfectly fine. I don't care. But yeah, we do like female Supreme Court justices, but not necessarily in Congress or in circuit court judges. But that one,
yeah, right.
We do.
And quite frankly, as a joke, I'll take advantage of that. But the point is, though, that we need to tell men and women, we need to tell young kids, we need to tell them that there's an opportunity, that if they like to, like me, if they like to solve puzzles, if they like to work on mysteries and read books like that, maybe they should be in the law. Maybe they can be a public defender. We have such a shortage of state public defenders in up north.
I know it. It's horrible.
It's appalling. And they should allow people to either Zoom in for these appearances, to do something. We should be telling lawyers that, and judges can't, operate as a lawyer. We should be telling them to, take one case in Upper Wisconsin, because justice is not served if you sit in jail or you sit waiting for your case to come up in front of a judge. But we need to build our base. We need to tell young kids, hey, you can do this. This is a great job. This is a great position. And that's what I would do. So when you say I wouldn't come back, you're not correct. I would.
We'll have you on before the election, so we'll figure that out next year. We've already blown past our time. It's been
Oh, sorry.
it's an absolute pleasure having you on. Let's get you back on, and I do want to find out more about law, or have you talk more about law, because I love that stuff. So now we've gotten the get to know you part out of the way. Now we can actually get to, some meat and potatoes, so we can catch up on your campaign, talk more law. Anything else you wanted to make sure we talked about that we didn't get a chance to talk about?
Just two things. One, the election is in April. Not a lot of people know that, remember that. So it's right after Easter, April 7. Early voting is before that. And two, just to learn more about me, go to my website, judgemarialazar.com. And you'll find out stuff about me. Yeah, we were going to be a lot more creative, and we decided let's just be law nerdy and straight on.
QueenLazar.org, maybe. No? Okay.
No, now my team's going to be mad at me. So lawqueen.com. No, it's judgemarialazar.com.
Don't bring up nerds on the show. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Maria.
Thank you.
All right, special thank you to District 2 Court of Appeals Judge and candidate for Wisconsin Supreme Court, Maria Lazar, for taking the time to come on for a chat today. I'll see all of you this Thursday at 8:30 a.m. when I'll be joined by Wisconsin's 73rd Assembly District Representative Angela Stroud. So until then, thank you for watching and have a blessed day.